Alright, you guys, we're sitting here at the pool with Sarah from my hometown in Zürich, and she traveled to Düsseldorf to showcase her pump foiling skills as a team rider of Indiana. And one thing we need to first and foremost kind of highlight is that pump foiling has not quite arrived in the female world. We know of 2 girls in Zurich that are pump foiling and that are actively involved in the sport and in its development. Internationally, of course, there are a lot of girls that are kiting and wing foiling, but the pump foiling in itself, there is still not many girls that are doing it, and so I'm super stoked to have Sarah here. And Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit how you got into it, what you like about it, were you a surfer before, or are you a surfer, or what is it? What's your story, Sarah?
Thank you so much. Thank you for having the time to sit down with me. I actually always loved surfing. I spent a year when I was 15 in Australia, and it was I loved it. Every minute I wanted to go to the Gold Coast, but my host family was a bit unsure about the boys down at Gold Coast, so I couldn't go there. But then I did multi-sports. I would say I'm doing many different sports, but then when I saw one guy foiling, it was 2 years ago at the jetty in November. I was just swimming because I used to
in Zurich.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was swimming, doing a bit triathlon, you know, and stuff. And then
Stop. You were swimming?
Yeah, I was swimming.
In November?
Yeah, but he had
with a wetsuit on.
A neoprene, yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
But it was a bit chilly, and then I said, "Can I try? Please film, because I want to get this on video." But I failed miserably, and so then. I was just curious, looked on Instagram if there were any people, and I saw Seno, who actually had the courage to teach me a bit.
Very cool.
And so I started doing it a bit, and I'm still hooked, yeah.
Very cool. And there's a part of my story in one of the recent magazines where we had the story about traveling through Zurich by foil. A lot of things came up about the number of tries in dock starting, and we heard 400 to 600 tries. Can you test that?
I don't know, maybe 300 to 400, but I must say the crucial part is how high you start for me. If you're a beginner, start high with a dock or a jetty that is high up, because you don't need to jump on it. So I started pretty low, and when in winter the water got more down, it was easier. And I still find it much easier to start from a higher point. You can only jump on it, and you don't need to jump with a... So that was the difference, I would say. Yeah. So about 300 to 400, but I didn't count, to be honest.
300 to 400, it's just crazy. And the one thing that we talked about back then was like, why are people not quitting? I mean, if you have 50 or 100 tries and you fail, people are not walking away from it and say like, this is a bunch of bullshit, I'm not going to do this anymore, this is garbage, I'm done. No, people continue.
Yeah.
Why?
Not everyone. You have to have a certain mindset, and I also saw some you see you progress, and that gives you a bit of hope. And also I loved it, being in the water, just having the surfing feeling, advancing a bit. So I think you have to have the mindset, but also the human soul is determined to learn, to grow.
Right.
And so growing is a crucial part of us. And so that's why I think I stayed with it. And I'm also a person that likes to perseverance. Yeah.
Very cool, very cool. That is something I can speak on my own. Once you touch a thing, it's kind of like you have a competition with yourself and the subject of learning, and you're like, I cannot let this thing beat. So you learn it, you go pump, it's winter time, you love to go pump. How many hours when you spend out there before it's definitely going to get too cold or you're too exhausted? How much time do you spend with it?
It more depends on the time I have, actually. I never get really too cold. If I'm cold, I get to pumping again. I drink some tea. I don't have much time. I work a lot, so but usually I pump about 2 hours. Maybe sometimes when I talk a lot, 3 hours. but with a lot of talking and discussing in between. It's not all the time.
Of course, foilers can talk about gear all day long. I've never participated in a sport where people sit in the parking lot and talk about their gear. I definitely have not seen that in any sport. Let's talk about something else real quick, the competition side of it. Have you ever thought about it? Would you, like the people in the community that you're hanging out with, do people think about it? It would be a cool thing to kind of pump race against each other, or like organize some sort of event, or like kind of push it further?
Actually, I think we, in the community, when we go together, we often do a little competitions or jumps or stuff like that, or just challenge each other, which is really positive. I do think that the competitive aspect hasn't really arrived, because we're also a bit afraid of it, that it could kind of transform the sport into something that's too much focused on a goal and letting out the happiness. But personally, I think I'm definitely up to some challenge. I love challenges, but we're not actively planning. But we're thinking about some just Guinness World Record stuff, like how many pump foilers at the same time on the lake or something like that. Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome words. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video, and we'll see you guys in the next one. And aloha.